Hey, it's Alistair Felix. Let's talk about goals. I don't know if it's just me, but when January comes around, I always seem to set these big and ambiguous goals, like get more healthier, save money, be more creative. But by the time February comes around, either I just forgot about the goals that I set or they just fallen completely through. Does that sound familiar? The problem isn't in the goal itself. It's actually the process and how we achieve these goals. I started leaning on this framework that's inspired by design thinking to make goals that actually stick. This framework is repeatable, it's flexible, and the best part is you get to do it again and again and again to make it work for you. Let me show you how this works. What is design thinking? Yes, if you Google it, design thinking generally is used in a professional environment and mainly used for designers to solve very complex problems. But in the spirit of creativity, I thought it'd be super cool to try this out on personal goals. Once I started doing that, game changer. I'll share my goals throughout this video so you can keep me accountable. Well, let's get right into it. The first step is empathy. One of the hardest things to do is to take time to understand yourself and what really matters to you. Even before setting any goals, I always ask myself, what excites me? What frustrates me? What do I really need in my life? I realized prior to figuring out what my goals were, I needed to set my intentions for the year. It was easy for me to write goals that looked good on paper, but after realizing they didn't really excite me, I didn't really care for them. At the end of every year, I tend to do a little retro where I review how my year went, what went well, what didn't go well, what sucked, and what was worth celebrating. And with that, I come up with a word for the next year. This year, I chose the word fearless. What's the one thing you want more of this year? Take some time to reflect. It's the first step to making goals that actually matter. The next step is to define your goals. This step is about being more specific and clear about what you want. For me, I tend to set 25 goals for 2025. And yes, that sounds a little ridiculous, but the exercise actually forces me to dig a little deeper than the most obvious goals. The first few goals are always very easy to write. They're the ones that have been top of mind, that you've been thinking about for a while, even a continuation of goals from last year. But this exercise allows you to find goals that mean much deeper to you. And the great thing about that is these goals are bigger and broader and more fulfilling. One of my big goals last year was to connect more with my culture, and this was something that I didn't know I needed. It actually turned out to be one of the most healing and creative things that I've done last year. Try doing 25 goals for 2025 or just do 10 and then go a little further. Try writing goals that are clear and actionable. It makes all the difference. Once you define your goals, it's time to be creative. In this step, Ideate is to brainstorm as much as you can on different ways on how you can achieve this goal, no matter how big or small. The thing here is everything that you end up brainstorming should connect back to your word from step one, back to your word of the year or your intention for the year. Since my word is fearless this year, when I start brainstorming ways to achieve my goals, I ask myself, how can I approach this more fearlessly? So for example, one of my goals is to create more content. I would think about what is holding me back. The fear of judgment, the fear of failure, and I would brainstorm ways to tackle that head on. One idea I had was to just post a video without overthinking. I know that I have a perfectionist mindset. I tend to overthink the script, how I'm being shot, time of day, very specific detail, and a great goal and challenge I set was to just hit record and see what happens. Another one is that I have a fear of actually recording outside. One of the smallest things that I could try is to start vlogging where I could go on a walk outside and just bring my camera. It's a small step, but a bold step to achieve my goals. Your word isn't just a theme. It's more of a lens for how you view the year or view yourself. Use it to guide your ideas and brainstorm solutions that feel aligned with the person you want to become. Next, we're at prototyping. This is my favorite part and arguably the most fun, But this is where the real work begins. In design, prototyping is more about testing your low pressure and small versions of your ideas. It's about experimenting and trying new things to see if they'll work out or not. One of my goals last year was to see how it feels like to be a content creator, like a real content creator. I challenged myself to post 21 days straight. Each day I worked on a different project. I got to paint, I got to dance, even got to try motion graphics and new editing styles. Some days felt pretty miserable because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But at the end of it, I didn't just have a collection of videos or projects. I actually rediscovered my love for creating. Experimentation isn't about results. It's actually about learning. It's about giving yourself permission to learn, to try, to fail. And because it isn't tied to your identity, it's risk-free. What's one small experiment you can try this week? Maybe a new morning routine, or even taking a tiny step to a big goal. The final step in this framework is testing. This is the moment where you can take some time to reflect on what's working, what's not working. What's important is, even though it is working, it's also good to iterate and see why it's working for you, and you can adjust from there. It's important to know that this step isn't about getting it perfect the first time, but more about learning and growing with each iteration. Last year, one of my goals, as you know, was to post consistently on YouTube, and January came, and I was honestly creating more obstacles for myself than setting myself up for success. The cool thing I realized is that I actually started applying this framework into my content creation. It allowed me to create with real joy. With this framework, I realized that it was important for me to always go back to my intention and my word of the year. And my intention last year was to build community and to connect with others. And once I remembered that, creating videos on YouTube was, I wouldn't say easy, but it definitely made it easier. I managed to simplify my workflow. I gave myself some grace and permission to create without overthinking. That mindset shift created all the difference. This framework is a great reminder that goals are not static. They're living and breathing things that evolve with us. If something doesn't work, go back through the framework. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test, and then try again. Each iteration should make you feel like you're getting closer and closer to achieving your goals. This year, my intention and my word of the year is fearless. And what does that mean? Fearless in sharing my voice through content, fearless in facing failure head on and learning from it, and fearless in showing up for myself again and again. This framework isn't just about achieving your goals, it's more about becoming the person you want to be. So let's just kick this off. What is your word this year? Let me know what it is in the comments, and I can't wait for us to achieve our goals together. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.